Man inherits cabin. When he enters, he makes a shocking discovery. Thomas from Florida inherited this cabin from his parents. He'd spent a lot of his childhood there, but hadn't been back in almost 20 years. As he approached the rundown cabin, he took a better look and had the shock of a lifetime. Thomas, 56, spent a lot of time in his youth in the woods of Florida, where he enjoyed nature and experienced many adventures until he grew up and moved down. He still always looked back fondly at the cozy cabin, so when he heard that his parents had left in the cabin in their will, he didn't hesitate for a second and immediately drove out to it once arrived. He immediately felt a sense of peace coming over him. However, this didn't last for very long, because this house was keeping a big secret. When Thomas drove onto the driveway of the cabin, it immediately felt very familiar. He'd experienced so many adventures as a child that they were impossible to forget. With a content smile on his face, he stepped out of his car. He climbed at the small wooden stairs to the house and put the keys in the lock. The door had always been a bit stiff and needed a bit of force to open it, but then the door slowly opened with a high-pitched cracking sound. It was so dark in the little cabin that Thomas couldn't see in front of him carefully. He tried to find a light switch by feeling around. This seemed to be much harder than anticipated, almost tripping over the old furniture his parents had left behind for him. He made his way through the living room. Just as he was about to reach the light switch, he suddenly heard a loud screech. Tom has started wildly waving with his hands, while something was trying to hit him on the head in the dark. Then his finger reached a light switch in a home room lit up. The intruder seemed to be a raven that had built a nest. With a sigh of relief, he opened the window to let the raven fly away, and then it was time to rediscover the cabin. He slowly walked through the living room to the bedroom and then to the storage area under the house. When Thomas was young, he'd made his own little hut under the veranda in the storage room. Now looking at the storage area, after all those years, he found lots of his old toys. His forklift and toy soldiers were still in the same place that he'd left them in. With a wide grin on his face, he grabbed one of the toy soldiers and turned it around in his hand, but then he spotted something in the corner of his eye that he'd never seen before. Quickly, he put the toy soldier back when he found it and turned to the strange object that he saw lying open and bare on the ground. It was an old rusty box. Carefully, Thomas picked it up and inspected it from top to bottom. Who put this here? He tried to carefully open the box, but it was so rusty that it needed to use all his strength to get the top off. He pulled and pried until the lid flew off and revealed its secrets. Curious Thomas looked inside, an adventure at heart. He hoped to find something special. The disappointment was big when he realized there was only an envelope in the box with "Ase." He took out the envelope and opened it. He quickly read the letter, and the reaction on his face soon changed from disappointment to confusion. This wasn't any regular letter. It was a riddle that would lead him somewhere. Thomas followed the directions in this letter and you will find what you are looking for. Thomas excitedly read the riddle a few more times before taking off. Left at the first tree heading north, then 50 steps to the right, and then at the old beast tree, walk exactly a kilometer to the east. Thomas followed all the directions until the last detail and eventually reached an open field with a huge tree. This is where he would find what he was looking for. Thomas quickly started to dig. As a kid, he'd made so many of these treasure maps that he knew exactly how to read them, but this map wasn't made by him. He needed to dig for roughly 1 meter and until he hit something as quickly as he could. He swept away the mud off the hard object in the ground. It seemed like a lid when he dug further to see his treasure better. He noticed it was another crate with all his force. He pulled the treasure chest out of the ground. When he opened it, he couldn't believe his eyes. The crate was filled with gold bars, but that wasn't all. He also found another old envelope with shaky hands. He opened the letter. That's when everything became clear. "Thomas, my little adventurer, I knew that you would eventually come back to the cabin. That's why I made this treasure map for you. Did you really think we would only leave the cabin behind? Your mother and I have saved for years, and this is the result. My boy, do something nice with it and know that we were always extremely proud of you. Your loving parents, John and Marie." Thomas was so touched by the letter from his parents that his eyes filled with tears. At that moment, he knew exactly what he was going to use the gold for. He used the gold that he'd received from his parents to restore the cabin to its previous glory days, without changing too much of the appearance of the house. He had it completely renovated. The old rotting wood was replaced and he completely revamped the paint and insulation. When the construction was all done, he collapsed onto the couch of the cabin and smiled happily at a photo of his parents. They would have been so proud. Forig.